that they both have a red line through them. We'll be taking questions from interns and asking them to our panelists towards the end of the panel. Please utilize the chat box to write down your questions. Maya will be keeping an eye on them. Now let us give a big welcome to our first panelist, Edgar Fabian Frias.
Hello, hi everyone. Nice to see you all. So yeah, my name is Edgar Fabian Frias, and I am coming here to you all from Oklahoma. I'm in Tulsa, Oklahoma right now, and I'm in a artist residency here. And I'm gonna be sharing a little bit about my art. I wanna share a little bit about my practice and the different things that I do. So I prepared a little PowerPoint to share. So I'm gonna, give me a second here. I'm gonna share my desktop. Give me a second. Okay. Okay, so as I said, my name is Edgar Fabian Frias, and this is where I have my contact info if people are interested. I have a website, edgarfabianfrias.org, and at Edgar Fabian Frias on Instagram and social media. And so I wanted to kind of just talk a little bit about the different things that I do, sharing my most recent projects. I'm a pretty multidisciplinary person, and I might kind of share a little bit about this when we go into the question and answers portion of this. But, you know, I definitely kind of have really expanded what it means to be an artist for myself. I have training as a clinical mental health counselor. I have a master's in counseling, and I've worked as a psychotherapist and as a social worker. And I also most recently have been working full-time as a contemporary artist, thanks to the Tulsa Artist Fellowship here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So this show here is my most recent show. It was a solo show that happened in Portland, Oregon at this gallery called Disjecta in Portland. There is a diverse kind of array of different media. I have printed fabric in terms of shower curtains and some pillows and a rug, and I also made some video work and some prints as well as some gifts. And so this is one GIF here that I create GIFs and I share a lot of them in my on my social media, like on my Instagram. And you know, this is definitely for me, GIFs are in many ways a self-care practice, just like Photoshop is a self-care practice. And it's a way that I like recharge myself, but it's also a way that I get inspired for other projects. And so in terms of what I do visually, as I said, I'm very diverse. I do across digital media as well as also kind of more events where I engage people. So this project here is there's an artist named Anila Kwayum Aga who had a solo show, and she invited me to create an event. And so I created this event where I invited people to create outfits that they got to wear and then parade around her space and around the museum. So this was like a live event that happened a few months ago before COVID-19. And this also happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I was commissioned to do a large installation of what for me are the sacred ancestors of my people. I am Vidarica or Huichol. My people are from Mexico. And so I wanted to show the sacred ancestors, which are corn, the sacred peyote, and also the sacred deer. And so a lot of my work is integrating spirituality, sacred practices, indigenous practices as well. In here, I have a photo of a workshop that I did at this music festival called Desert Days. This workshop was on communicating with plants. And we all as a group communicated with a pepper tree, and people brought the different messages that the pepper tree gave them. And this is a 1 minute, hopefully I have enough time to play this, but I have a 1 minute video of a project I did in Los Angeles. Sorry, give me a second. So this project was one that I did for the City of Los Angeles for this festival, a public art festival. I brought together different practitioners of sound music, of kind of meditated soundscapes and performance. And we had a big feast in the middle of Los Angeles for the community. A lot of people came and got some free food. So I definitely do a lot of community-based work that does bring in the metaphysical and the musical and different realms like that. And in terms of music, I also have a band that I'm a part of. This band is known as Gay K, and it's with my partner. And we had a show here in Tulsa, Oklahoma last year. So I just wanted to show a photo of that. And this is from last year as well. It was a solo show that I had in Los Angeles at the Vincent Price Art Museum. And this was my first solo show ever at a museum, so I feel really like proud of this show, and it definitely really has kind of pushed me in a different direction as an artist. Um, and I think, you know, most recently, this is I think the last slide I have, because of what's been going on with COVID-19, I, like everyone else, basically, I've lost so many projects and so many exhibition opportunities had to be postponed. And so I've actually been moving a lot of my practice into the digital realm. And so this is, most recently, I've been commissioned by the Vincent Price Art Museum to do a workshop series that's all online. And this one here is called Reclaiming the Body as Altar and the Creation New Myths. And so this is something that I most recently have started doing a lot more digital virtual work. So I think that's all for me. Yeah. All right, thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much, Edgar. Now I'm going to switch gears and present Rachel Cara Perez.
There we go. Okay, I couldn't unmute myself. Hi, everybody. I can't see you, but I'm going to pretend that you all just said hello back. My name is Rachel Cara Perez, and I am a multidisciplinary artist and educator. I am based in the Bronx in New York, which is where I am right now. And so multidisciplinary means a number of things. I'm a singer, I'm a theater artist, a mover, a writer, a poet, and I also teach or have taught all of those disciplines as well. I went to school primarily for theater performance and sociology, and then I got my master's in music. And for a while there, I was pursuing more so like classical and opera, which I'm not anymore. But I appreciate all of the different influences. I did a lot of Afro-Cuban jazz. I've also done contemporary opera. I've done a lot of different genres of music. And in more recent years, I've really fallen in love with teaching artistry as well. So that's a really big part of my practice now. I've also worked largely within the South Bronx, which is the poorest congressional district in the United States, actually. Predominantly working within Black and Brown communities, and also working with refugee youth, teaching in Spanish and English, and just sharing my love of the arts with young people who may or may not want to pursue that as a career necessarily. But I'm a firm believer that even if you are not necessarily for the arts per se, I believe that the arts are for you. And I like to approach and view the arts as a tool and a vehicle for healing and for community building. And that's very much the role that it has played in my own life. I have had a very kind of zigzaggy path. As a young person, I followed more traditional kind of Western Eurocentric trainings. You know, I studied classical voice, classical piano, and I think through theater and sociology and just meeting a lot of different people and being very curious, and I'll literally talk to anybody, it helped me expand. To build on what Edgar said, is how I think you said that you were redefining what your artistry means for you. I may be like misquoting that a little bit, but that definitely spoke to me. I feel like I'm very much in that place in my life where I'm exploring a lot of the intersections and overlaps between arts and activism, and how I can use my artistry to amplify the stories of marginalized communities. I myself am Black, I'm African American, I'm Black American, Puerto Rican, and Cuban. So it's like a trifecta. So it's a very powerful combination. So that's very important to me to pay homage to my ancestry and to represent that in the work that I do, and to serve those communities as well. Currently, you know, I'm in the Bronx, and it's crazy because everything kind of stopped. But you know, I do miss teaching. I do miss collaborating with people in person. But that's kind of a gist of what my kind of life has been like, and the work that I do. And I'll give more examples of that later. I'm in a writing collective. I'm also, you know, I coach people in voice privately and writing, in addition to developing my own one-person show. So yeah, it's a lot of different things, but somehow it all makes sense. And yeah, I think that's my time. But let me double check. Yep, I'm good. All right, thanks for listening.
All right, so thank you so much for that, Rachel. The next person that we will have is Jamila Vasquez.
Hi, my name is Jamila Velasquez. I'm gonna try to keep it short and sweet. I'm originally from the Bronx. I'm zooming from Rockland County. I'm an actress and a singer-songwriter. I've been acting and singing all my life. I started off in a conservatory in Harlem when I was like 6 years old, and was always encouraged to keep going and keep pursuing and learning as an actor. Eventually I went to PPAS and had the best experience there. I was a vocal major and then switched to drama. I started auditioning when I was 15 professionally for like TV and film, and after like 2 years of just going on hundreds of auditions, I finally got like my first guest role, which was in Law and Order SVU, and they brought me back a few times, excuse me. and ever since I've just been working. I've done Orange is the New Black, Blacklist, all the freaking New York cop shows. And most recently, a film that just came out on Netflix that I actually filmed 2 years ago called John Henry. And then I'm going to be in the remake of West Side Story, Steven Spielberg's remake. It's a minor role, but yeah, I've just been kicking it in quarantine, trying to stay creative and stay inspired, pretty much.
All right, well, thank you so much, Jamila. So now I'm going to switch things and present Allie Briggs.
Hi, you guys can all hear me, hopefully. So my name is Allie Briggs. I am a fantasy illustrator and narrative storyteller. I have been, for the past, it's 2020? For the past 3 years, I've been working as a full-time freelance artist. A lot of my work is dedicated to creating characters and designing characters for other people, mostly for tabletop RPGs like Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder. And what I've done is I've created sort of like this platform online of just producing things and interacting with the community and kind of trying to like build up sort of like a safe space for people to be able to hang out and have these like wonderful conversations and share all these amazing stories. And I just draw. So I actually, I've been doing okay with quarantine. It's sort of a bittersweet kind of moment. I was also a teacher before quarantine happened. I taught part-time as a kind of like a contractor over at RISD for the continuing education department, teaching pre-college drawing foundations. And then I also worked at a nonprofit called River's Edge Arts. But before quarantine happened, we had this huge layoff of restructuring, and I was laid off. So bittersweet, I was able to kind of get ahead of the game as far as the unemployment, and my drive was still ready to go and just push kind of creating artwork and really focus on bringing stories for other people to life from like around the world. And Twitch is one of those amazing communities that just brings everybody together. I've talked to people from Russia, Germany, Australia, Panama, and a lot of them like just love talking about their stuff. Yeah, otherwise that's like digital has been the one saving grace to like keep me motivated and keep me pushing forward and being creative, because I used to also do conventions. And if you have never been to like a Comic-Con or an artist alley before, that is definitely more than 10 people. So yeah, so that's me.
Okie dokes. Thank y'all so much. Let's go ahead and Ariel, if you don't mind just taking off the spotlight. Okay. If the panelists can go ahead and take themselves off of mute. Wonderful.
We skipped a panelist, y'all.
Oh, which panelist have we
Lisa.
skipped? Oh my goodness, I'm sorry. I thought we were, I apologize.
That's cool. Hi, everyone. I'm saying hi as though I'll get a hi back. Hello. I'm Elisa Vera Ramos, she, her pronouns. Oh, thanks in the chat box. I see you. I will share my screen because I think that it might be interesting to for you to just see a tiny little snippet. I like to sometimes talk about my work in the buckets of the collaborations that I work in. So I'm a theater artist, I'm a director, I'm an organizer, mostly for reproductive justice. I am also a youth worker, and I also consider myself a cultural worker. So just thinking about like what are cultural narratives around certain kinds of things, like for instance, sex and sexuality, especially when it comes to young people, and how do we shift what people think about these things? But I do it with folks, with like a really groups of folks who are really personally dear to me, or who become dear to me through processes. And it's very much community-based work. So that might be, I don't know, interesting to folks. So folks can see this, yeah? Can the presenters just, yep, good, thank you, Maya. Great, so one of the things that I am an organizer for is an artist residency called Swarm. And it's based in the Midwest. We're in Chicago, I'm in Chicago, but we have done it in Wisconsin and Iowa on beautiful farms. And the idea is essentially to get city-based artists out of the city and into nature, and into sort of their bodies, and we call it like a nervous system reset, right? Because it's just so different to be in nature, and just to like commit to your art for like a certain amount of time, which might be food, like that chef, and to just be in consistent community. And there's also a racial justice lens intentionally, that's kind of like, cool, so if we're gonna go and try to like, you know, live in community or like actually heal ourselves, we have to really practice like not microaggressing each other, and like just being good to each other, and things like that. So I do a lot of work with the healing artists, and in just making sure that as many people of color and trans people are there as possible. Then I also work with Femelanin, which is a performance collective made of femmes of color. And we've been on hiatus for a little while. Maya actually helped found this organization when she lived in Chicago. We've made a lot of devised work that's based in our own personal experiences. We try to be really, really careful about, even though we work collaboratively, about consensually working with each other's stories and cultural backgrounds, and being really, I don't know, like how do we center the way that everyone wants to talk about themselves, even when we fictionalize. This right here is Epic Tales from the Land of Melanin is what it's called. And it's a play for young audiences. You can see the box monster here. And it's also participatory. So it's also, basically, inviting the audience, which is like, you know, six-year-olds through 12-year-olds ish, but also everyone, to participate in like helping these femme heroes take down colonialism, basically. And we also have a book. Well, we're in a book, which is called Ensemble Made Chicago, by Chloe Johnson and Koya Paz, if anybody wants to check that out. Some incredible Chicago-based folks there. I'm gonna check the chat because I got 3 minutes. Thank you, Maya. That was probably half a minute ago. So anyway, and I think something very important that we're doing too with this group is being really slow and intentional in our relationships and our ethics. As it relates to it being anti-racist, being gender inclusive, and consensually making work, which just takes forever, but in a good way, you know? And then I also am full-time at an organization called ICA, the Illinois Caucus for Adolescent Health. So that's maybe different from a lot of folks on the call. We are youth serving reproductive justice organization. I work with the youth organizers. And one of the things that we're working on, this is a project that I helped develop. One of the things that I'm working on is repealing our parental notice of abortion law, which basically involves parents in abortion decisions of young people in Illinois. And we think that's fucked up for a lot of reasons. And so we developed this participatory website with young folks' vision and voices highlighted. That's stoppna.org. That's one of the things that we do. Again, thinking about culture shift, like what are the narratives that we think about when we think of young people and pregnancy and abortions, parenting, and how do we make it beautiful when we say change your minds. And then I also am the artistic director of our theater company, which is FYI. This is ica.org. Created this really gorgeous play that was site specific in a park. All of the work is participatory, so all of the work is like highly interactive and is basically asking audiences to actually support young people like during the play, not just afterwards by signing a letter or something, but like during the play, learn to talk about sex, learn to support young parents who might be navigating difficulties in school. That's the one that I developed and directed, Expectation, about young parents. And yeah, we also tour those shows to schools. I'll pause there. Thank you all.
All right, thank you so much, Elisa. So what we're gonna do is, since Allie didn't have an opportunity to show some of her artwork, we're gonna bring her back and she'll be able to show a little bit.
In reality, this is just showing you that artists make brain farts too. So I had an oops and just was so excited to tell you about everything that I did. I didn't want to show you what I was doing. So let's share my screen. I currently have my website up right now. I've got like many artists, I have a bunch of them, Instagram, a standardized art station, which is really great to go to. So here is just a small selection of things that I've done. So I'll just click through so you guys can see without me talking, since I've already mentioned the things I've done. And you can enjoy the very colorful, magical illustrations of Dungeons and Dragons characters, or just character design in general. So if you're ever curious and you want to go and check this out on your own as well, Allie Briggs art pretty much everywhere. You can always dig in. You can see some more sketches. You can look into the images themselves. Some of them get pretty big. But yeah, just a small sample of what I have. So whenever you guys want to start up on the next spot, feel free, because I just don't want to take up too much time. I feel bad enough as it is.
No problem. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take you off the spotlight.
Sure.
For all other interns, feel free to see through speaker view. I myself, I'm going to change just to gallery view so I can see everyone all at one time. If I can do that in a good way. I'm sorry, just to make sure, Allie or Ariel, is Allie still on speaker spotlight or no? Okay, great. Panelists, feel free to take yourself off of mute. For all other interns, as I'm going to conduct this question and answer portion for our panelists, feel free to continue using the chat box to ask any questions. Make sure that if you are going to be asking a question that is directly to one single panelist, make sure to put their name down in the chat box. If it is a general question, you do not need to put down their names. Maya is going to be taking a look, and then after my portion, she will then read off some of the questions. So the first one is that I want to just pose to all the panelists is, how are you guys taking care of yourself? I know that Edgar was mentioning about how gifts are a form of self-practice. For some of you guys, I've had other conversations about how you all are staying well, but feel free, any panelists, to jump in and talk about how you guys are all taking care of yourselves during this time.
I could jump in, but I don't think I'm the best example because my sleep schedule has been destroyed. So how about this? How about I set the bar very low and we can go from here. Yeah, so my sleep schedule has been destroyed. I tend to kind of go with the flow and just work, but a lot of times that means I'm staying up till 4 in the morning. And because I'm working as like a digital streamer, that means that I have more freedom to be able to do so. So that would probably be like, that is the low bar, like real bad. Otherwise, I buy gifts for people, and I've been, I feel like I've been a lot more engaged with a lot of like my friend group. So that's a pretty good thing. Like we've been sending stuff back and forth, or like checking in on each other and just like seeing how everyone's doing. So a lot more communicative than I normally am as an introvert who likes to not go outside. Yeah. Figured I might as well get it out of the way.
You're hilarious.
And Rachel, I know that I know that we've talked in length about how you've been taking care of yourself during this time. You want to share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I'm a big yogi. I'm actually in a yoga teacher training right now. So meditation is a huge part of my life. I mean, I've had a relationship with yoga and meditation for about 20 years. But I think in the last year, I've really delved deeper into it. And it's definitely been a grounding force. But also, like Allie, like it depends on the week, because like there are definitely weeks where I'm like, my priorities were, you know, binging Tiger King and Love is Blind, and I was like, oh, okay, I get it. All right, got it. Carol Baskin, like what? She definitely killed him. And she definitely fed her husband to a tiger, I'm convinced. And but apart from that, yoga, meditation, and I dance. I do a lot of like bedroom sessions where I do movement, and I'll do it to like, I listen to like all different kinds of music. And so depending on the day, depending on my mood, if you like my Instagram, I'm very amused by my Instagram, and I mostly do it for my own self and vanity. But like, you'll see me mean mugging, you'll see me head banging, you'll see me doing like dancing to like falu, you'll see me like, you know, African dance, West African dance.
Music has been kind of the one thing that has kept you, you know, centered and
Yeah.
yeah.
Totally.
Edgar, do you want to share a little bit more, since you did kind of introduce this self-care and art with gifts? Do you want to kind of talk a little bit more about that? Oh, mute. Okay, there we go.
I feel like, yeah, I definitely have to always have a part of my practice that is for myself, because I do feel like as a creative person, like a lot of my work can be in doing things for other people or for other projects. So I always have to have, like, I see it as a sanctuary where like every day in the morning, I like to like work on either Photoshop or do some journaling, just some sort of practice where I can process. That's really helpful. And for myself, like I definitely have been sticking to a schedule and kind of acting like I'm going to my studio, and that's like something that has really helped me. I know if I don't like get the same amount of sleep or certain things, I get like really thrown off. So I've been trying to stay, but also, you know, having that flexibility of having days where I'm just like, I'm not doing anything today. I'm just really taking some time off. And one thing that's been super helpful for me too is just been going on like hikes or just walking around, getting some air, fresh air. I don't know, that's not always possible for people, but here in Oklahoma, there are lots of areas that are pretty, like, I would say not that heavily populated. So it is possible here. So I definitely have been doing that a lot as well.
Thank you so much for kind of introducing that idea of keeping the structure for yourself, of like getting used to that routine, because I think something that can relate to everyone is that staying at home, that kind of routine falls apart. And then staying motivated to either stick with your craft or stick with your work, whether it is for our interns who are doing online learning or doing their own individual arts practice. That is a great point to make. Does any other panelists kind of want to add into this question, or is it okay for me to move on to the next portion?
I think I have one more tiny thing to add, which is just yes to everything everyone's saying. I'm hearing a lot of resonances with things that I'm practicing, but I think it's also really hard. For me, it's also really hard to not feel anxious or guilty about all of the things that I'm not doing, right? Like, oh my God, I said I was gonna do yoga every day and I missed 3 days. or like, you know, I have this full-time job, and my our executive director is being incredible about saying like, everyone work one less day a week, work less hours. You know, it's actually quite radical, and we're thinking about what does healing justice look like. But it's also like, oh damn, if I can't find the will to do my 5 hours of work today, like, how do I let it go? And how do I also tune into my body and like just listen to it and just know when I'm able to work and know when I need to go to bed or when I need to take a bath or whatever, you know? And I think that is not something that it's not something that we're taught. It's not a cultural thing that we're okay with in capitalism. And there was just like a really great Twitter post that became a meme that I wish I could cite right now, but it was basically like, you're not just working from home. You're not just going to school from home. Like, you are trying to work in like crisis and trauma, collective crisis and trauma, right? So and then how do you let that go too, right?
There's a lot of snaps in the chat that's going on right now for what you just said. Something that I did want to bring up, this is separate from some of the questions that either Ariel, myself, or Maya kind of spoke to you about. Something that was brought up was arts and activism. And I think that is kind of a thread that may connect some of the artists here. And what does your arts practice, especially for my arts and activism, look like, knowing that there are some populations that are deeply affected by COVID, and then there are some populations that, especially when we look at geography-wise, I think that even some of our interns, they may be affected deeply, or their own neighborhoods may be affected more than others. And then how does that look like in your arts practice with arts and activism? And then for our other panelists who doesn't necessarily have activism in their current practice, if they can just add of how this may change your arts landscape. Whoever feels more comfortable. I know you don't see my eye contact, Elisa, but I'm looking at you because you really brought in this arts and activism. It's so prevalent in your work. And I wondered, and even if you don't necessarily have an answer right now, is that something that perhaps, you and your collective may be grappling with and trying to think on what does this, especially for women's rights and, with everything going on, there may be a refocus or anything like that, or if it may affect your art.
Yeah. Well, so through ICA, it's a reproductive justice organization, which in short means like everyone has the right to parent, not to parent, and to parent the children that they do have in safe and sustainable environments. And also, we like to put gender and family and bodily autonomy into that, right? Because it's very trans inclusive as well, in the way that we think about it. And it just is a shift in our work in terms of like, what are we actually wanting to put out into the world that people need? Like a sexual health resource guide. The young people that I'm working with have had a lot of things to say, specifically, there are organizers, about self-care and community care and how they're doing in quarantine, right? And also how they feel about, the different kinds of protests that are happening, right? So like protests by white folks, right, that are like, let us out, right? And they're like, that's fucked up, let's not, right? And then the protests that are happening to free people from detention centers and from prisons that are like cars, social distancing through cars and like camping through beeping, that are like, yes, we need more of that. That's a public.
I think that's something to be said of just how other people are using protests. And I think that, there, especially as a theater artist, through protests, you do see kind of performance art playing that may, with, using your car, like doing art in a car. I know that Rachel's a performance artist as well, and how that can possibly change it. And I can imagine that with all the influences of what's going on right now, that does lead to an effect on how you guys offer your art and offer the change and offer support to the community. I know that I see Edgar nodding their heads to this.
Yeah, I feel like I've been thinking a lot about like how, as a psychotherapist, I know how important it is for us to be able to create a narrative or some sort of processing of what's happening. And I feel like for myself, a lot of my work in the last few years has been really community focused. And so that's been really challenging, as for like a lot of people have mentioned, to not be able to be in community or to work with community. And so I've definitely been kind of really working with creating online platforms for for people and online offerings or ways for people to connect so that we can process and try to make sense of what's happening maybe on a deeper existential spiritual level, because I think that's something that's deeply missing within our culture of, we're being given things like that are really helpful, but like there is no really understanding on a larger scale, like what's really happening here and what does this mean for us, in the future. And now, like, there's so much that needs to be processed and understood. And so kind of really in a sense shaping my practice now to help hold that space for a lot of the creatives and mystics and witches that I connect with, and really hold that space so that we can all process together so that we can be strong for our communities too.
I love that. I don't know if Ali or Jamila wants to add to how the arts change your own landscape. I know that Ali, you had mentioned before that did you have a booth in conventions at Artist Alley? Was that a thing that you did for yourself?
That was usually what I did. So this year, as I was getting ready to purchase like a couple of the ones in like the fall, I saw everything starting to happen in March, and I was like, thank God I didn't buy it already. But now I don't have that income coming in. So it's rough, and there's a lot of other artists who have they do the convention track. They go around the entire US and they go all these different major convention shows, and that is like their major source of income. So like New York Comic Con, Anime Boston, Planet City Comic Con, or Plastic City Comic Con, Emerald City Comic Con, San Diego, like all these like major places that are huge hubs. And they would take, I think the schedule is generally from about the beginning of May to early November, and they'll have at least once a month or two a month, and that is like their income all year. That's how they feed their families. I was gonna say, and this could be a mild tangent, but so as far as like for streaming too, because of the COVID and the pandemic, there have been a lot more people that are now online. And there's 2 points that I wanted to make is within Twitch, at least the things that I've noticed, there's a lot of people who do bring up COVID-19 and they try to help out their communities and invite new people in so that they feel like they can at least talk to people and have a space to hang out. Like that interaction, like a lot of streamers will interact with their chats and they'll talk to them like we're in the same room. So that is like an awesome thing that's happening. And there's so many more people doing it, which is great. And then on the other side of it, there's also, this is a discussion I had with one of my other colleagues who also streams and also does art and conventions. And he mentioned how there's almost like this pressure now. Like we're going through the same pandemic that another person's going through, but we want to be able to be on and available to create the space to help them get through it. And then at the same time, we're overstretching our space and becoming stressed out from that, but we still try to give back. So it's like an interesting balance that's now occurring.
Yeah, I thank you so much for, sharing the realities. I think one of the things that in the selection of this panelists, this panel, is that you are all working artists. And some of our students are trying to make the decision of, do I become a freelance artist? Do I go headfirst into acting? Do I do that? And I think that there's some real benefits and lovely aspects of being a freelance artist, but then it does come with having to figure out that this income is no longer here. How do I readjust? And listen, I think my students know that I go to the Comic-Con every
Hell
year.
yeah.
Okay, I cosplay and I stop by the Artist Alley and I try to support my artists as much as possible. So I know that there is a big loss, and trying to figure out how do you move to another landscape, how, everyone has to eat. And I know for myself, and speaking to my interns, we want to fight the idea of the struggling, starving artists, that there's a paint of a picture that a lot of people just want to put everybody in. But I think being an artist and creatively surviving, we have to figure out different ways on how to adapt. And I think artists are amazing at adapting and, you know, and how do we continue to move on and live. So thank you so much, Ali.
Yeah, no problem.
For Jamila, I know that me and you, we've had conversations on, you know, and I think Edgar also mentioned about some missed opportunities, right? And for you as as an actress, there were some auditions that may have had to been canceled because of everything that's going on. And then something that you can really relate to our interns is that you are taking online classes and you're taking online acting classes. How do you stay motivated? How do you stay motivated when knowing that certain projects and acting opportunities have been canceled? And how do you stay motivated and stay focused to, you know, do your online acting classes, which can be really difficult and a struggle for some, especially even for some of our students who attend PPAS as well?
So I'm taking classes with Terry Knickerbocker. It's this Terry Knickerbocker studio in Brooklyn, Industry City. So yeah, of course, when quarantine happened, we were all a bit hesitant to continue classes online because it is a conservatory, and you know we had just started in January and we didn't want to stop. But at the same time, we were like, is this worth it? You know, doing this technique, the Meisner technique, like over Zoom. And honestly, it's been so worth it. I feel like all of us as a class have really seen each other grow a lot. I'm finally at a place where I can really appreciate this technique, because in the beginning I wasn't sure how I was feeling about it. But yeah, it's been amazing. It's been, sometimes I have days where, like, we call it Zoom fatigue, where we're just kind of like over it. Like, but I recently just enrolled into the physical character 9-week class that is starting actually tomorrow. And yeah, I mean, we were talking about, like, how do we stay, you know, inspired. And I just, especially like since I'm not auditioning right now, and I just spoke to my manager and she's like, it's not looking good until possibly September, like, you know, for casting to start looking for actors again. But I just feel like this is the perfect time to train, to just get better at something that I love, so that way whenever we do get out of this, I'm just as prepared as possible to kick ass. And so yeah, so that's kind of what keeps me inspired, like knowing that, you know, that I am growing, and, you know, even on the days where I don't feel like doing it, I'm still growing. I'm keeping it pushing, you know.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think some things that you said is really real, is Zoom fatigue. It's some, you know, we may be sitting at home and home is to be our sanctuary, but now it is our gym, it is our school, it is our office. And sometimes it can be really exhausting. So I do want to thank our students just right now for being here. I know that you guys are doing online learning and then you're hopping on this call. I appreciate you, and I admire everyone for being able to adjust, because no other high schooler in this world knows what's going on other than your generation right now. So, and I say that often to the times when I'm talking to my interns of how much I respect and admire you guys. But something that you said, Jamila, that I think is so beautiful and wonderful is that you were saying this is an opportunity to hone my craft. So I think if we take a look at this time and we think of it less of a pause, a stop in our life, and as an opportunity to build, an opportunity to work on a project, an opportunity to hone our craft, that it doesn't have to necessarily, one, you don't have to feel that I have to be the most productive person in the world, but maybe it can help your own self without having to feel like this is the end, or this is such a loss, this is a stop for all of my learning and all of my art, is that maybe this is a good time to get better, to find at least one thing to improve. So you don't have to feel so overwhelmed with either that I can't do anything or I have to do everything during this time. So that was really beautiful. And I hope our students can really retain that. And again, interns, feel free to continue to write in the chat. For our panelists, this is for everyone. Has there been, this is a little bit less of COVID and more of kind of our own interns experience. Everyone is matched up with a mentor. Has there been a mentor in your life that maybe you speak with now, maybe that has helped you get to your own success and in your own career? Yes, so whether it be a mentor, a teacher, someone that has helped propel you, if you want to kind of speak to that and share that, anyone feel free to add to that.
I can go. I think I have a mentor. His name is Asher Hartman, he was my teacher when I was an undergrad, and he was one of the first kind of people that really saw me as an artist in the way that I feel like I am now. And he's someone who like really gave me that impetus to kind of take a risk, because as I said, I'm a clinical psychotherapist. And so I, for a long time, had a therapy practice. And when I moved to Los Angeles, I was kind of just almost in habit, started looking for a full-time job as a psychotherapist. And he gave me a psychic reading. And in the reading, he told me, don't look for full-time work, get part-time work. Because if you get part-time work and you focus on your craft and you kind of build that on the side, things will happen. And so I trusted him and I took that risk. And, it took a few months, but I definitely started more and more kind of becoming a contemporary artist. And so actually recently, he and I have been working together with this museum called the Vincent Price Art Museum. And we've been doing like readings for people, like psychic readings, tarot readings. And that's definitely something that I feel as an artist, he's also helped me see, is that we, really need to be multidisciplinary, multivalent, and we need to mutate constantly and have all sorts of ways that we can engage community. And I think as you were saying earlier about this time, this is a time where we're also mutating and becoming different, and really kind of honoring that process as well and seeing where that's going to take us.
Edgar, you give me all the feels. I love you. Is it too soon to say that? We just met. I already said it. If this is the line, I live over here.
Yes.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
I've never had a mentor per se. I feel like all of my mentorship and growing and learning has been like lateral. Like co-learning, co-evolving with collaborators, with friends who become like family, and we make things that way, and we also care for each other that way. That's why I love Swarm Artist Residency so much. I've stuck with it for like 5 or 6 years as a participant and then as a leader, is that we're crafting the space for each other to practice racial justice. We're practicing healing justice. We're saying, where are the healers in our community? Can we fundraise and resource each other? And then like create cycles of care in that way. And then something that's even more interesting to me lately is like, how do we also critique each other with love? How do we dialogue about our work and not just say that was good, but like actually ask questions. And for me as a director, can I be vulnerable and invite my trusted colleagues and friends in to see a show before it's done? Before it's like dress rehearsal and like, you can't really give me notes, And so practicing vulnerability in that way too. Not that I'm like opposed to mentors. It just hasn't been my experience.
That's cool.
That's really awesome. As a fellow director, once it's at dress rehearsal, just say you like it.
It's frozen. The show is frozen. It's frozen. Yeah,
I'm trying to hold myself accountable. I'm calling myself in.
Yeah, I think something that you said that's really wonderful is that, and I'm sorry if you hear loud noises, it is 7 o'clock in New York City, and my neighborhood does like to celebrate
Everybody claps us,
the changing of the shifts. but I think something that you've said was that, yes, your mentor, you can hold on to, but then also your fellow artists, the people that you're surrounding yourself by, you grow with. And this doesn't have to necessarily have to do with art, y'all. So even if you are not planning on being an artist, interns, the people that you keep around you will help you grow. Oh, or it can stifle it. So making sure that you're choosing people that are going to critique you with love and want to see you grow and move on. And you can also rely on for advice and to help build yourself up. I think that's a wonderful advice that kind of translates outside of the arts and also just to the world. But I really love that. For some of the students, they sent me a message saying that y'all are answering their questions already before they can even put it in the chat. So thank you guys for being so insightful. Something else that I just want to add, Edgar, you were mentioning about mutating and adapting and being multidisciplinary. And I think that for our interns in this chat, if you identify yourself as just one thing, I bet you that you're not. I bet you that you can move beyond that one art form that you think that you are restricted to. And I believe, Jamila, you are also another great example of being an actor and also being a being a recording artist at the same time. I know that you released some music during this time of COVID. And it's being able, and this is another way that, you know, of creatively surviving. So I don't know if you want to share something to that, or the other artists, panelists want to share something about being able to, you know, satisfying yourself artistically beyond just the one border of maybe that you learned in college or in high school. But yeah, does anybody want to speak to that? If not,
I was just gonna say how also like focusing on other things or being good at other things like gives you, it just expands the opportunities. Like I've gotten, just because I can sing as well, I've gotten, that's how I got Empire, that's how I got West Side Story, you know, like also being able to adapt as a singer as well as an actor. So
yes, girl, I caught you in them Empire episodes. No, but that's so true. And I think that helps even outside, if we were living in regular times. Like I said before, being an artist, you know that you got to eat, and being able to figure out how can you move in different ways. And it definitely speaks even more during this time. And I know that for our other artists in this Zoom call, Rachel, you have your zine and you're doing a writers collective. I saw your zine on social media that you released, that you worked on prior to COVID, but were able to release now. And you have a writers collective for June. And then we have Alisa. Alisa? Did I say it right? Yes! You're also, you know, you are a theater artist and director, but you also live in an arts administrative realm, do you not? So it's being able to, I think that just the selection of people here is a real great example of being able to adapt to different circumstances, but also know that your skills are not only stuck to one thing, but move to others.
Can I add something to that?
Me
Real
too.
quick? Sorry to, so I went to a conservatory. I got my master's in music, and I had a teacher who actually was a liberal arts professor within that very weird conservatory setting, which is always a weird experience. But I remember he said something like, if you only spend your whole day in the practice room, your music is going to start to sound like the four walls that surround you.
Ooh.
So I think the same thing goes for, like, doesn't mean that you have to be like an expert this and an expert this and an expert at everything. I think it also goes to, like, be curious, like go to museums, read the books. You have a weird fetish of like a certain type of comic book, collect all the freaking comic books, because everything that you do is going to feed into your art. And if you only stare at this one wall and this one actor and this one monologue and that one thing, if you're not remembering that monologue, go for a freaking walk, have a donut, eat pizza, cook something, like, I don't know, cry, watch a movie. Like, you're not one dimensional. So don't try to approach your art or yourself as if you're like this one thing, because even just the things that you're curious about, like explore that. Like, you don't have to, I think it's capitalism that tells us that like everything you do, like, how do I brand this? How do I make money off of this? I can't do it unless it's going to give me a profit and then I can sell it and then people will hashtag me. No, you're a person, be a person first. So like, if you're just curious about this one thing, just be curious about it and like delight in that. And I think that that's also the silver lining for me personally, for like this, like everything kind of was on pause. I was like suffering from a lot of panic attacks prior to all of this. Like, I don't miss life pre-quarantine because I was doing too much and I was burning out like all the time. The last time I was on the subway, I had to get off because I was having a panic attack. You know, so I don't miss it. I don't miss the subway. Like, I don't miss it. Like, and I don't feel bad about it. But what's great is like, I've been practicing a lot more self-care, and it's like that need to be like hyper productive, like be creative in your self-care. Like, that's an art too, especially if you're Black or brown. Right. Black people, we're dying out here. We don't get enough sleep. We statistically die at higher rates. We get the least amount of sleep. Like, sleep. All of you, stop getting on Instagram till 5 o'clock in the morning. Sleep, because it will mess up. Like, it's important. You're gonna live longer. That's my spiel. I'm ranting. Mute me.
It's so right.
Like, one thing I want to add. So,
love yourself.
Yes. So you totally like. I'm heavily vibing right now, but like the idea of like sitting in the room with like the four walls, big thing. Like, I've always. Whenever I have like a mentee and I'm ever helping somebody else out, they're always like, oh, how do I get better at art? It's, well, first off, you have to just make things and be patient with yourself and find the things that you love. But also, we're just weird organic archives that we keep plugging information into our brains. And for some reason, some things stick, some things don't. But like, if you never get the opportunity or you never try to go out and explore, try new food, do new things, you're never going to grow as a person. And it's such a... Yes.
Nap ministry, yes. Nap ministry.
And then also being like okay with yourself if you ever need to ask for help too.
Yes.
So that's a big thing. Like, I don't know how many other people might have gone through this. There's also a lot of online therapists right now. I went into therapy before this all happened, so I'm like, thank goodness. But like, finding your voice or being okay with you, even in this pandemic, just being okay with you is so important. And if you don't get stuff done, it's okay. Like, it's okay.
I think it's so completely radical, revolutionary, so like such the way we should be going to be able to use this weird time that is not a pause time where we're still alive, right? To be like, how am I feeling? How's my body doing? You know, like, what are the things that bring me pleasure?
Yes.
What are the things that give me anxiety? Who are the people that are helping? And when is having 4 calls even with friends, like, not doing it for me, right? And to be able to attune to yourself and attune to your needs, and to be able to adapt. And I just think that's a very it's a very singular special thing that artists are able to access a little bit more easily than other folks. And that is just like to also to get right with yourself, to get in a right relationship with yourself first. And then how do we bring that to others? And some of that might look like skills, and some of that might look like other things.
Had myself on mute there. Yes. Thank you guys so much. This was, I love how we kind of organically are coming up with this really great conversation. Again, I'm just going to continue to ask students to put in their questions in the chat. I know that, again, a lot of it is being answered and a lot of fruitful stuff has been coming out. Even if there are some questions not only pertaining to what we're speaking about here, but if you know, you want to know more about their own career, feel free to ask questions there. If you have questions about Allie's art or Edgar's multidisciplinary practice, how did they end up in Oklahoma? What is an arts residency? If you do not know what an arts residency is, if you want to ask questions to Jamila and about like making the decision to go to a conservatory now, and kind of how to stay motivated with auditions. Rachel, when it comes to their zine, being a teaching artist, yes, I'm starting to see the questions come in. That's what I live. Or again, when it comes to Elisa and theater and arts activism, which is, I just need to have a one-on-one conversation with you. That's just for my own arts practice.
Me too. I'm crashing. I'm crashing. You can't get rid of me. You gotta mute me. I'll turn down for what?
Questions coming up right now. I'm gonna offer you guys one question before we move into any of the Q&A. What kind of advice would you give your 16, 17, 18-year-old self now? Now, it could be as simple as I tell my interns, do not follow your significant other to the same college.
No, don't do that. You crazy?
That's not a smart idea to do. Or it could be something, yes, it could be something about how you may have approached school and your career and anxiety and worry. You can also translate this question when it comes to what kind of advice would you give your 17, 16, 18-year-old self if you were in the middle of all of this. Because the advice that you may have given yourself may be different now that they're not in school. You know, they're not physically in school. They are at home. And now school is no longer a social engagement. It could be kind of isolating. And I think all of us can experience how isolating this time can be. And I think I would ask you, if you're going to answer that question in COVID time, of putting your mind as a teenager who can't go to graduation or prom. And those kinds of, you know, almost kind of the Western rites of passage. What kind of advice would you give to a junior or senior? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I guess real quick, because that one's fresh in my head before going into giving myself advice. It's okay if you don't go to prom. Now, I know everyone's probably like freaking out, and everyone's screaming, like, I just bought my dress, my makeup's done, the freaking corsage is on the person's wrist already, we're ready to go. I'm gonna tell you now that there's gonna be a point in time where you can set up a giant party. You and a bunch of other people can come together, you can have this amazing party, and you don't have to worry about, I don't know, maybe like people you don't get along with or weird drama stuff that happens. You can make that moment in your time. You can buy that dress. You can look fabulous any day, no matter what. You can just dance in your house and have a tiny little party with all of your best friends, and you look amazing, and you hire a photographer and you're all gorgeous. You can make that. So I'm going to preface this real quick, as this also comes from a person who I did not enjoy my prom. I looked fly and great, and I've got maybe 2 pictures and that's it. And the rest of the entire night was a little bit of a, I don't know. They were still playing songs from when I was in middle school, and it wasn't vibing. It didn't feel good. No. So, but again, so this is my point of view. I know everyone, you know, it is a rite of passage. It is a time to say, like, yeah, we've conquered high school. But just because, you know, COVID's happening now doesn't mean you can't conquer it later. Set up whatever you want.
I have to really quickly jump in before people answer this question and say that
ICA, because we're a youth serving organization and because we're also silly, we're having a virtual prom on Saturday. We're having a virtual prom on Saturday the 16th. The pre-prom starts at 6 or 6:30 Central, and then it starts at like 8 or 8:30 Central, and you can come. And young people are able to get in for free. So I'm gonna put the link in the chat, and if you actually wanna come and like party with us, we're gonna have a really fucking awesome DJ and just like some like dance classes and like weird performances, and it's gonna be really fun. And you can dress up. I'm going to wear 3 outfits. So I just want you to know that. If you wanna come, we want you there. But
Yes. That's amazing.
But yeah, I mean, answer the question, but I just want people to know that.
Perfect. Because like I'm like I literally the moment I said it, I was like they want to murder me. They all want me to just go away.
No.
I think like kind of connected to this, like I really feel like it's important for us to reclaim things for ourselves that maybe we feel we didn't have or have been lost. And I think for myself, a lot of time growing up, I felt very different and like I didn't belong. And I think, really a lot of my life has been like searching for community, searching for people that resonate with me. And I guess I would really tell myself as a young person, like that exists, that's out there, that there are people who really will get you and who will understand you. And, and I definitely feel like I would tell my younger self to go into therapy and to also like learn, to get support, to learn how to love myself more, and to also, I think, really learn that I can create those situations that maybe I feel like I don't have. And I think that's kind of connected to what we've been talking about is like, if you don't feel like you're represented in terms of being an artist, or if you feel like, no one cares about your work, because I felt like that for so long, make your own exhibition, invite your friends to come support you and celebrate you, like start in that way. And then you will really, it's almost like kind of building into working into who you want to be, and then all of a sudden you are that person. And so I would have never have thought I'd be in Oklahoma, 1, and 2, being a full-time artist doing shows all over the country. Like that was like a fantasy of mine, and for a long time that never really happened. And I think kind of understanding that it's going to be a process and that you're going to move through different phases of your career, of your careers, and then really looking for those people that will be there to support you, and knowing that they're out there, and that if you don't feel like you have that community, that it's something that you can maybe start to forge or kind of call towards you as well.
I am getting emotional. That was really beautiful.
You dropped your mic. You dropped your mic.
Before another artist is going to answer this question, for our interns, if you are having a hard time getting in touch with your school for a guidance counselor or for any therapy sessions, please, I know that some of our your internship manager can send out an email if there is an issue, if you can't get a hold of your school. Those resources should still be available to you, even though y'all are at home. So if there is ever an issue, please feel free to reach out, and we'll try to advocate for you as much as we can. For the other artists, does anybody want to add to that kind of advice to your advice to a junior or senior, either for right now or just for yourself?
I want to add on to Edgar, because I think you just gave advice to my younger self. So my heart is very full right now. So thank you. So same, yes, and everything that you said. Because similarly, I feel like I'm 33, and I think now I can finally say I love myself. And I couldn't say that probably not even 2 years ago, right? And I think I would have told my younger self, like, you don't have to do the things that people tell you just because you're good at it. That was really big for me, because I'm good at a lot of things. I'm very, very fucking smart and very passionate and enthusiastic. And whatever I do, I'm like, ah! And then when I'm done with it, I'm like, all right, now I'm going to attack this thing. And that makes me happy, right? Sometimes people have an idea of what you should do because they're more concerned with their own idea of their legacy, or, and that's okay. Like, people have their opinions, but I would want to tell myself, and also kind of like taking off of what Alisa said about taking a moment to just like see how you're feeling. Like that's really where my self-love journey came, was in meditation, because my mentor is my voice teacher and he meets me exactly where I am. He's practically my therapist, because he is the first teacher I had that really cared about me holistically as a person. Before we even start a breath exercise, he's like, take a couple of seconds, just close your eyes and just feel how you feel. He's not expecting me to come in and be super positive. If I'm pissed off, he's like, okay, be pissed off. You can still sing and create and collaborate in a shitty mood. You don't have to be like 100% perfect. Don't disrespect people, right? Like come correct. But you can feel how you feel, and you don't have to like this toxic positivity. Like meditation is only so you can feel peaceful all the time. No, it's so I can be at peace with myself wherever I am, however I feel, unapologetically. So I would like tell my younger self to like stop apologizing, and also like actually go slower. Like it's okay. Take more time. You're not going to miss it. You're not going to miss it because you're going to make it. You're going to make it for yourself, and what's out there, you're going to bring it because it's not there yet. It's coming from you. And I think that's what I would tell my younger self.
I think what you said is really wonderful and beautiful. I know that for myself, I'm not going to expose my age to my interns. Myself,
I'm a Cancer.
And I think this can relate to the young women in our kind of workshop here, that women are told to apologize a lot, to say sorry. And and I think for anyone, just pay attention to the amount of times that you do say sorry, and just be unapologetically you. I think something else that you said that I really just want our interns to really hear is following your own trajectory, that only you know what's best for you. And I think for some of our interns who are considering taking a gap year because of everything that's going on, that know that you don't need to follow the mold of someone else to be accepted and happy with your career, to be accepted and happy for your life. I think knowing what's best for you and following, being an artist, there is no set path. There may be some people who studied to be a psychotherapist and then followed their art and continue to do that. There may some people who did not go to college and they found a way and still live their life with a plan. And that is okay. Or there's some people who decided to go to a conservatory route and that's what made them happy. I think it's knowing all your options and making what's best for you, taking in advice of other people, but knowing what's the right decision for you, because you're the person who's living your life.
And I think that it's not always easy to know what's best for you. Right. And so I think everything that you said, I think consent is reversible. I know consent is reversible, right? It is. Okay. So you can go down the path and be like, like I wanted to be in this experience, and in the middle or at the end of the experience be like, actually, nah, I'm good. Right. I'm not in this. Right. And so that's the advice that I would give to myself. I think that I was thinking as Rachel was talking, I was like, actually it's leave situations that make you uncomfortable. Yes. Or leave situations that feel like they're draining you in a way that you could tell. I'm not even gonna quantify it. Sorry. Tell, right? I should have quit my acting class. Like that. I didn't learn anything about acting in my acting class. For me, right? Or I should have switched, right? Like sexual experiences, for sure. There's a lot of things that I was like, just, like there. Even if I didn't know at the moment, like who else I would have wanted to be XYZ or what other class I should have taken or etc., I could have still taken the time to be like, oh, I need to take myself out of this situation. But that's fucking scary as hell. So,
I think, yes, I think knowing, I think that was
Period.
a really beautiful advice that can translate to someone's own career, maybe in the arts, but also just in life in general, that you can try something or start something and say no.
Yeah.
And I think that's how we figure out what's best for us, is trying it and then making a decision, and it's okay. So thank you. And Jamila, you are the last artist to speak, and I want to make sure that we give you your time. And I think, Maya, there's only about 2 or 3 questions, correct?
We have a couple questions, so we'll see how many we can get to.
Okay, awesome. So please feel free.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jamila.
Oh, okay.
Oh. Honestly, I really loved what Elisa just said about if something makes you uncomfortable, like, say no. The advice that I would give myself when I was like 17, 16, I spent a lot of time alone in high school, like just isolating myself. I wouldn't even freaking have lunch at the cafeteria with my friends. I was just very, always felt very different and always like kind of beat myself up for feeling different in a way, like, because I'm a Sagittarius and I'm a people pleaser, and I want to be nice to everyone, but people were, and I'm very good at reading people's energy, and now that I'm 24, I'm like, it's okay to be the awkward, quiet person. It's like, you don't have to be the loudest fucking one in the room or the most, you know what I mean? Like, just, it's okay to just be yourself, and what people think of you is none of your freaking business.
The people who mind don't matter, and the people who matter don't mind.
I love Dr. Seuss.
Thank you guys so much. This was a really beautiful conversation. And I want to just hand it off to Maya so we can get to some of the questions that the students had asked.
Sure. So one of them, I think we could actually expand to everybody. They were asking, for a digital artist, has there been a point during quarantine when social media has affected your mental state? So maybe we can talk about just like social media, health related strategies for everyone, because I think we all interact with social media in our work. So
Put your phone down. Put it down. Put it on airplane mode. All right, because I work in front of my computer, and I'm sure a lot of you who do recordings as well, you have to be there, you have to be present, or emails, administration. Your phone, if that's one less screen that's buzzing in your ear, asking for your attention, you can focus more on you. So if it's, even if it's just away for an hour, just 1 hour on airplane mode or silent, whatever you need to do, have a moment to wake up in the morning, have a coffee or whatever teens drink this morning. And then, and then just take a moment, step away. If it needs to be longer, make it longer. I literally don't touch my phone for days. But I do everything on the computer. I do everything on the computer.
Good on you.
I take breaks, actually. I'm a big talker, but I'm just the opposite extreme when I'm by myself. Like, I'm a Cancer. I'm Cancer Sun, Rising Taurus, and Libra Moon. And I'm an empath. So I feed off of energy. I get very excited around people, but as soon as I get off of this, I'm probably not going to talk for like 5 hours. So like I'm with people because I'm ready to be, but I need my alone time. I don't talk for the first 2 hours I'm awake. Not because I'm being a diva, because I just notice I can't, like, I don't have the energy. And I'm quarantining with my family, and like no one thinks it's weird. They're just like, oh yeah, Rachel's not talking yet. Like if I just don't, and I go on voice rest also, which is something I would do, is like, being a singer and trained as a singer, that's usually something that is done kind of like when you have vocal fatigue or you're sick, and but I do it periodically just for like self-care, because I expend so much energy that sometimes I struggle with like keeping something for myself. And at the beginning of this whole like shelter in place quarantining thing, I actually took like a week or so on voice rest, and I also just like deleted social media apps off my phone so I wasn't tempted to check. And then I put them back and I went ham. But you know, I'm a person of extremes, but I know what I need.
Yeah.
And I just do it when I need to.
I guess real quick, just in case someone wants to know how to handle social media as well, there's tons of apps that are out there that, so say for instance, if you're trying to promote your work, you're trying to get it out there and you don't want to go and have to post to Instagram, post to ArtStation, post to Twitter, post to Facebook, Reddit, everywhere, Tumblr. Usually there's a couple of apps like Hootsuite,
Oh yeah.
or Later. There's a bunch of them, or some of them are, they're interchangeable, like Facebook and Instagram, or they're owned by Facebook, so it's the same people. You can post to one and share to the others. So having an easier like pipeline to presenting your work, if that is a part of your normal day routine, just simplifying it, trying to find the easiest way. Even if it's dropping like $2 a month on like a little app that helps, if that keeps you sane, honestly, it's worth it.
I've curated a little bit. Like I'm only like I won't read any mainstream media news, and I will just read the posts because I follow them, right? So they'll come up anyway. I'll only read posts from like organizers that I trust or organizations that I know are social justice organizations, and that helps. And I've also like added a bunch, like to practice my Spanish, added a bunch of Spanish speaking like abortions rights activists and like things like, and like freaking, what is it called? Astrology memes in Spanish. And now that we're all disclosing our signs,
yes,
as a Gemini,
yes,
Gemini sun, I definitely, will need to like literally actually like leave my phone at home and go take a walk kind of thing, or like or develop practices that are reflective and let me actually like force me to sit with my thoughts. Because otherwise I'll be like, oh, let me listen to a podcast, let me let me put things in my brain, like tarot cards or like whatever it is that is gets me into my body and out of my head.
As a Gemini sun also, I can fully relate to that. I also leave my phone sometimes because I do so much of my work on my phone or on my computer that I need to get away and have other practices that kind of shift my awareness. Because I think even having conversation or even looking at something, it's a state of awareness, state of consciousness. And so thinking of practices that get me into other states of consciousness, whether that's dancing or things that bring me pleasure or nature, all those things that really shift my awareness, I think are super important.
Yeah.
I think just to wrap up what everybody's saying, to go back to what Elisa was talking about in a previous, it's about boundaries, right? So it's listening to yourself, figuring out what boundaries work for you, and then I think sticking to those. I think that's what everyone is sharing, is like, what are my boundaries so that I can take care of myself? And I think the real danger of social media is that often we can't choose our own boundaries. You know, sometimes like a post from a person that you don't follow who's friends with somebody else shows up, and then all of a sudden you're interacting with content that you maybe didn't consent, that like you wanted to hear this point of view that maybe is toxic to you. And so just being aware that these things are sort of set up in a way to not always facilitate your boundaries. And so thinking about like how you're in that space to make sure that you're taking care of yourself is super important. We have a couple more questions. So I have two for Edgar. I'm just going to kind of like squish them together, and then maybe other people, because I feel like some of these other people can talk about this too. So the first question for Edgar was how your experience as a psychotherapist has affected your aesthetics and use of different media. And then there was another question about how do you multitask everything? And so I think everyone on this panel is multitasking, but if you want to start, Edgar, and with the part A and part B, and then we can move to everybody else.
Definitely. I think ever since I became trained as a therapist, I feel have expanded my interest in working with people. I've been collaborative probably for my whole creative career, but I think ever since I became trained as a therapist, I started to learn more about the importance of creating spaces for people, spaces of transformation, and also seeing the connections between creative practice, art practice, and seeing how they connect to kind of your own personal transformation that can happen within a therapeutic environment. And then I think that really kind of started to almost like mutate me into this, in a way, like kind of bringing all those passions together into one place and realizing that, a lot of my passion in making art is to build kind of spaces that maybe I wish I would have had, or that I'm wishing society or culture would have, or in some way like honoring practices, honoring people, legacies, lineages, that are maybe not being honored and I feel really need to be honored. And that I think also connects to, in many ways, my own Indigenous ancestry and finding ways to integrate that into my work as a therapist, and also into my work as an artist, and kind of really centering that, because I think for my own self, I wasn't really aware of my own Indigenous ancestry until my 30s. And a lot of that has to do with colonization and the way that my parents didn't want to talk about myself being Indigenous. And so kind of having that, and seeing and witnessing how my own Indigenous ancestors did not separate therapy from art, from culture, from community. These things were all like interwoven into a whole, and kind of realizing that that's who I am too. And that's who a lot of people, like I think a lot of us are in healing practices and art and community building, organizing, right? These are all things that come together in one space. And so I think that also in many ways makes me think of my aesthetics of wanting to repurpose like cultural ideas, memes, images, and really work with them and think of like what kind of narratives I'm telling with my work, because a lot of us have been in many ways brainwashed by a lot of these systems, have been telling us how to think or feel about ourselves. And so using my practices in that way. And I would say, the way I work is not for everyone. I feel, because as a Gemini, as someone, I need to have like 10 projects going at once. And I know some people that's like overwhelming. So I need to name that, but I'm definitely someone that like, I need to be able to work on multiple things, to have like in the morning, I'm like making a video, and then by the evening, I'm like writing an essay, or just being able to kind of exist in different ways is super exciting for me. I get really bored if I only have one form of way of working or being. And so that's something that helps me. But I think I'm also, my rising is in Virgo. I'm a Scorpio moon as well.
Oh, wow.
And I think my Virgo rising really helps me organize stuff. And so staying really organized, making sure I don't miss deadlines, things like that is super helpful. So want to name that as well, that I'm really appreciative to my Virgo energies.
Scorpio moon here too.
Yes. Yes.
Everybody download CoStar.
I just know I'm a Virgo. I think rising Leo. I can't remember. It was like a natal birth chart from like 2 years ago.
Cap rising.
We're so well balanced.
All the things.
Any other thoughts on multitasking? I think because everyone really, I think all of our students are having to do that in their lives. So I think any other thoughts?
I think you can allow it to shift, that it might not look like what worked one day or 1 week or 1 year might not work the next, because you'll be a different person. And like meeting yourself like with grace, like it's okay that like, it's like sometimes I feel crazy because even these past couple of months, I'm like every week is an experiment. Like there was the Tiger King week and I was like, okay, I can't do that again because I need to sleep more. And then there was a week where I was like getting up at 6 a.m. every day to like meditate. And then I was like, I really want to sleep more. So like, sometimes it's like little things, but it could be like by the hour, depending on your personality. Like, okay, this time I'm gonna do this. But for me, I tend to like do things in chunks. And so I might have like 3 days where I'm like, I'm just gonna dance. And all I'm doing for these 3 days is like, because I needed to be in my body and I felt like disconnected from my body. So I was like, I'm not reading this. I'm not writing that. I'm not answering these calls. I'm not doing that. I'm going to be in my body and I'm going to be fucking dancing because that's what I need. That's what my spirit needs. And then I'll be able to write better for my queer writing collective.
Yes.
I think it's for me, and this is a big teaching of quarantine because this is new. Okay. This is new for me, but it's that the life stuff is also what you're multitasking, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, you know, eating food, cooking food, grocery shopping, like getting fresh air, like calling your mom and your grandma and your godmother, like on Mother's Day, all of that is actually labor. Right? Like talking to your partner, you know, like walking your dog. There's a lot of things, plus your work, plus your school, plus your art, right? And so it really is, how are you, I'm getting overwhelmed by just saying that. Whew. It's like, what is your palette for the day, or as you say, the week, whatever. Like really how, like, what are you prioritizing and bringing into your life? Because quarantine is forcing me to understand that I can't just really, like, I could, but maybe it's not best for my thriving, certainly, to really quickly be eating my sandwich while rehearsing my lines on my bus on my way to someplace, you know, and like, that's what I would usually do. Right. And so really taking a thing at a time and saying like, what is, where am I putting my attention in this moment?
I've used to-do lists sometimes to sort of help me through, and I've noticed that during quarantine, like, I usually write down more and get less done. So I've had to just sort of just become okay with not getting stuff done. But then you just can reassess at the end of the day. Like, we're mutating, we're adapting. Those words I feel like are very key to this. It is, this is a pandemic. This is not normal, and you just do the best that you can at what you want to do, and prioritize you and the people closest to you, and spread that energy outward. The more you kind of feel good, the more you feel okay with yourself, the more you're able to give that to somebody else.
And I also just want to honor that, like, there are folks, you know, who are not able to shelter in place, right? There are people who are like, you know, I'm an essential worker, or I have to contribute to the household income, or, you know, my parents are essential workers and so they're going out every day, so I'm at risk every day, or whatever it is, right? And so just acknowledging that there are intersections with class and race, right? That are really, really, like, more pronounced than ever right now. And we live in an incredibly classist, incredibly racist society, right? And I think that, for me, that just means also, like, how can I literally actually pay it forward to people? Whereas if I have a full-time job and like my org is super rad and social justice-y, like, can I put money somewhere else, right? But then also, like, can I make space to support or cook for or whatever my partner who is an ER doctor, right? or different things like that, just to acknowledge that as well, because that just is going to come into play. Maybe you can't always pay attention to your body and yourself because there are other systems at work, right? And I also think we gotta chip away at those as well.
So we're 15 minutes over. So I feel like this is as long as we're willing to keep everybody over. So we didn't get to all the questions, but I think if there were any questions that were not answered, just go ahead and email your managers and we will try to get your burning questions answered off of the call. I don't know if my co-organizers want to join me in thanking everybody for your time, for our panelists, our students. This is, I think, a really beautiful and generative conversation, and we appreciate your voices and your spirit being here with us today.
Yes, I again want to just thank our interns who had a full day of online learning at home,
Yes.
and really sticking with us 15 minutes over. And although there weren't a lot of questions, there was a lot of snaps, yes, period to everything that was said. So thank you again. And I think the panelists, just take a second. There's a couple of thanks from our interns. And they're coming into the chat, and I know that they really appreciate it. I know that we kind of just, Ariel, Maya, and myself, we kind of just picked from our world, our art world, and it just, all of you guys just meshed and really kind of was a wonderful choir to giving encouragement and inspiration to our interns. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for attending. It was a really great conversation. And if you are following our ETA Instagram, I did a little shout out there also. So,
Hey, follow us on the gram.
For our
Right?
interns,
Is that what the kids are saying now?
for our interns, as a reminder, if you are planning on signing up for workshops only, and this was your first workshop, make sure you sign up for another workshop that we are holding. I believe that there is another comics workshop with Ariel that's still available. My theater workshop is still available for this Friday, so please sign up for that. Game of Tones is filled, so please make sure. And Maya, you're going to be holding another one, another material meditation.
Yeah, next Wednesday. So watch that video and do your gathering if you want to do it. But we'll do another one next Wednesday.
Yes. So please sign up on Sign Up Genius. If there's any issues, please email your managers. So thank you to our interns.
Yes.
Enjoy the rest of your evening if you are in New York City, and enjoy the rest of your day if you're in LA.
Sigue pa'lante, which means sigue pa'lante.
Gracias.
For our panelists, can you just stay on for just like 2.5 seconds?
Yeah.
Yes.
2.5.
Gone.